Welcome to Dharma College. We're excited to have an opportunity to speak to our dean, who happens to be my husband as well, Dr. Richard Dixey. So this is going to be um, a fun chat to get to know our dean, Dr. Richard Dixey, and I'm going to call him Richard for the sake of this interview. So, Richard, can you share with us, welcome. Could you share with us a little bit about your role as the new dean of Dharma College and the vision that you have to expanding, reimagining wisdom in modern times?
Sure. Well, Dharma College has this mission statement to reimagine wisdom. And it's actually quite an important statement. We want to reimagine the way that the Asian wisdom traditions present what they present. And these traditions are really important. They're unbroken. They go back 2,500 years at least. And they deal with the nature of perception and reality. And we want to reimagine them in modern language. So the whole principle of the college is to express these ancient ideas in modern language. And the interesting thing about them is they're very, very relevant to modern conditions because the wisdom that they point to is the wisdom that realizes that our own experience is in part a construct. And this is very, it takes a bit of time for moderns to get their head around because we're all educated into the idea that there is an external world that we see and it's real and all of that. And then we have all this technology that appears to interact with the external world, even though basically at the level of physics, you can tell that's not really quite the case. But much more importantly, from the personal point of view, we have to realize that our own perception is highly colored, and it's colored by our own preconception. We really go round and round in circles in many ways, seeing the world the way we want to see it. And other people see the world they want to see it. And so as a result, we disagree about what's real. And really getting to grips with that is a major theme of the Asian wisdom traditions. And really that's where the syllabus of Dharma College goes to. It goes to understanding that. So my job as dean is to make sure we have a structured program that can take people where they are and show them how, with small adjustments to how they're living, they can live much more healthily and better. But then at a much deeper level, they can engage with their perception and really start sorting out the difference between what they preconceive, what they recognize, to use the common term, to recognize, and then actual reactions, which are not recognitive, but are direct. And separating out the direct from the recognitive is a really, really important step. And once that occurs, then a whole path opens that's really invisible if you don't do this. So that's really the agenda of Dharma College. And if people achieve that, then we can go on to talk about wisdom properly. Because wisdom is really not what you learn. Wisdom is a character thing. It's to do with how you react. And in this world of rapid economic, social, climate change, etc., we're dealing with a really important challenge, how we react. And Dharma College is trying to address that challenge using modern language, and hence reimagine wisdom.
Thank you. Could you share with us, for the sake of a new student coming to Dharma College, a little bit about your background prior to coming to Dharma College so that they can get to know you as a teacher?
Sure. Well, I'm a bit of a hybrid, really. I was trained as a scientist. I did my first degree in biochemistry, and I did a master's in history and philosophy of science and a PhD in biophysics. So fully trained as a scientist. And I ran a research laboratory for 14 years in central London. But all that time, I was concerned that somehow there was something missing in the idea that science would explain everything, which was, an idea that gets put about that somehow science is going to explain everything. And it clearly doesn't. And why doesn't it? And what is that? And that was always in my mind. And I met Dharma, Buddhism, when I was actually studying for my first degree at Oxford, and was very impressed by the fact that Buddhist teachers could address modernity using the teachings of the Buddha without having to modify them or say, oh, well, it's not quite what he meant, or, that was a long time ago, or whatever. Really, the Buddhist teachings don't need modification at all. They are completely relevant to modern conditions. I then went on and ran a biotech company for 14 years. And right at the end of that period, I met you. And during the period I was running my biotech, I was actually studying quite seriously in a Buddhist tradition, which I continued after I met you, and then came to America with you, and we decided to run Dharma College and the Bhaita Buddha Dharma Foundation together. And so now I'm a full-time Buddhist person, whereas before I used to be known in London as the Buddhist businessman. And so I bring a kind of scientific approach. I have a lot of respect in scientific materialism. It is an incredible achievement, actually. It's a great human artifact. So to me, scientific materialism matters. What's interesting is you can combine the very best of technology and scientific insight with what I think you could call a spiritual path. That is to say, a path that addresses your own experience as experience. And combining those two things together is very exciting because it opens up the possibility of engaging with modernity without being alienated by modernity, which is how so many people suffer from this, that they feel their life doesn't matter, and the external world's the only thing that's real, and all these weird ideas. And these ideas are just wrong. I mean, they're philosophically wrong. But what is important is to give people an experiential base so they can really address this for themselves. And that's what Dharma College does. We're really based in experience, and we're based in being able to engage our own perception directly. And if you can do that, then big changes occur.
Thank you. I know that one of your foundational courses that you teach at Dharma College is Searcher Reaches Land's Limits, a commentary on revelations of mind. And you spent a number of years putting that commentary together, and now it's being offered as a one-year course. Can you tell me why that book? Because my father Rinpoche has many books, but that book seems to be a very big part of your teaching at Dharma College.
Yeah, well, Tata Rinpoche is a very unusual Lama. He is one of the very few remaining High Lamas who was trained fully in Tibet. And I think when he first came to America, which was in 1968, he taught in very traditional manner, using traditional language. But then he realized fairly quickly that Westerners weren't getting the essence of the Dharma from this traditional language, because it's very, very hard to translate the essence of a tradition like this from one culture to another. So he began to work to try to find new metaphors, new ways of explaining the essence of what the Tibetans believe in Western language. And over the years, he's developed different approaches and different types of metaphor. Well, Revelations of Mind was really a masterwork of his that came out in 2012, and he was very proud of it at the time. And in fact, in the back, he put all the other books he'd ever written, all other 30 books. It was like a sort of compendium book. And Revelations of Mind was the book that we were teaching uniquely at Dharma College, really, from 2012 to 2018. And the thing about Revelations of Mind is it requires you to engage with your own perception. And that can be quite difficult to explain to Westerners. So I decided to write a commentary, more like a reading companion. It's not really a full commentary. It's more like a guide, a help. So you can approach Revelations of Mind more directly. And I published that in 2021 and 2022. And these books, they're called Searcher Reaches Land's Limits. And the land's limits I'm referring to are the limits of recognitive conceptuality, which is really how we make a map of the world. But it is limited. There are things that go beyond the map. But what are those? And when you reach land's limits, you can look. So the way we structure our courses is we have what are called 100 level for newcomers to the college. And they are really courses about well-being. And of course, well-being is extremely important. Without a base of well-being, it's hard to go any further. But once you have a base of well-being, then the 200 level courses look at this issue of how we structure perception. And the core of that is our Revelations of Mind itself and two other books that Rinpoche has written over the years, Gesture of Great Love and TSK, Time, Space, and Knowledge. And they all address the same issue. And people who've come through those books find their lives completely transformed. And then we have 300 level courses, which are really about wisdom. They're about what would you say about experience if you understood the difference between what you're mapping and what you're actually experiencing.
Mm.
What would be different? And that's where the wisdom teachings come in. And that's the 300 level courses. So, I'm very proud of Search for Reaches Land's Limits. And I love teaching Revelations of Mind. And I think it's a transformative book. I really do.
Wonderful. Now, a personal question. How do you stay inspired and continue to grow in your own practice and teaching? What keeps you inspired to teach?
All right. Well, you know, the path of practice that we teach at Dharma College and runs through your father's work is that you work with experience here and now. It's not a path of meditation. Whilst we do train very short periods of meditation to give stability, the truth is this isn't a path of meditation. This is a path of addressing experience as it arises now. So the answer is what inspires me is to remember that. And, we forget it because for a large part of the day, we're like robots. We're just doing what comes next in a kind of blind kind of way. Then every now and then you wake up and go, wow, what's happening now? And anything that can awaken you to what's happening now is deeply inspiring because you suddenly go, wow, most of life is passing me by. I'm in this little narrow blinkered thing, going from one thing to the next like a robot. And there's all this potentiality. That is deeply inspiring. And, it really is every day. It's not that you have to be in a special place to experience this. Wherever you are, that's the place that you can say what's happening now. That's what inspires me.
Thank you. That is inspiring to remember. I'm going to dive into some more lighthearted questions. If you could master any skill that you currently don't have, what would that be?
To play the guitar really well.
Mm. You do have some guitars, don't
I
you?
do. I collect American flat tops, but I'm afraid, like a true collector, I love them, but I can't play them properly. And I don't have the patience to learn guitar. If I could just download learning guitar so I could play them nicely, I'd be very happy. But of course, really, that's trivial. Really, I would like to become a fully fledged craftsman of my own perception. So, moment to moment to moment, my own perception is something I'm working with and I never fall asleep into a robotic routine. That's what I'd really like to do. The guitar is just an embellishment, but I to do that would be the greatest gift of all.
Hmm. Well, that is inspiring. It's inspiring for all of us who's on a spiritual path to have someone take that so seriously as their path. Um, Finally, I'm going to ask you a question here about what's one piece of advice that you wish you could give to your younger self?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, isn't it? I mean, young people full of energy and make a lot of mistakes. The fact is, old people have much less energy, but have learned from those mistakes. So you think, as an old person, should I go back to my young person and correct those mistakes? I'm not so sure because you learn from your mistakes. So whilst it's very tempting to say, "Oh God, don't do that," that's a mistake, man. Maybe it's not because I'm happy where I am now, and where I am now is the result of where I was then. So although I made a lot of mistakes, I got there. So this is a really hard question to answer because you look at your younger self well, there are a lot of things you do wrong. But if you come out well at the end of it, I'm sure a lot of those mistakes were learning experiences. And really, when you look at wisdom, when you say, we just hired a new baseball coach, he's so experienced or whatever, what you're looking at when you use that word experience is a guy who's made a lot of mistakes. The key is you persist. Frankly, success really is measured by making mistakes and persisting. Very few people get it right, first of all, almost nobody. You make mistake after mistake after mistake, but you persist. And if you do so, you will learn. And over time, you'll get wiser and wiser and wiser. And so I'm not trying to give my younger self any advice, to be honest with you. I think that, you know, I am where I am now.
Well, with that being said, Dr. Richard Dixey, our friend here, our dean, Richard Dixey, will be teaching a class this fall, a whole year program on Searcher Reaches Land's Limits. And Richard, do you want to say a few words about what you'll be doing in the fall with this course?
Yeah. Search Reaches Land's Limits is a 200 level course. It's really only open to people who've already taken one of our 100 level courses because it does require a certain stability of mind, and it's a pretty serious course. It's over 5 terms. It has 5 6-week classes, hour and a half long each, with a seventh revision class. So actually, altogether, it's 35 classes over an hour and a half. So it's about 50 hours of instruction. And we work through this book called Revelations of Mind, which is this remarkable masterwork of Tartan Rinpoche. And it's like a journey. I mean, I've taught it continuously pretty much for the last 8 years. And every time I teach it, it's a new story. It just continues to amaze. And that's because, as Rinpoche said in the introduction to the book, he says it's the mind speaking to the mind. And as you become free of preconception, new things open. And then you see more. Then you become free of preconception, then further new things open. And so it's always like a journey for me. I'm always really excited to teach it. And I think it'll be fun. Every year has gone really well. And we use PowerPoint slides. But we have class discussions. The discussions get very lively. And then we have a online community portal. It's all done over Zoom. We have an online community portal where these recordings are placed and people exchange, messages to one to another. And then we have revisions. So, it's really quite intensive and people find themselves transformed. And honestly, it doesn't make much difference if you're a seasoned Buddhist practitioner or a complete newbie. Well, not complete because you must have done a 100 course, but a newbie basically to this approach. Everybody says it's a remarkable experience to truly take this on. And so that's the basis of the course. And I love it. I just find it very inspiring to teach.
Well, with that in mind, I want to thank you, Richard, for your time today and for your inspirational leadership as a dean of Dharma College. I say this a little objectively, of course, you're my partner, but to know that someone who's been so steeped in the Western education is considering Dharma so faithfully in their lives and with so much commitment to sharing what you've understood with others. Thank you for your time today, and I hope that you have a chance to take a class with Richard Dixey. He's offering a beautiful class this fall, Searcher Reaches Land's Limits. You can find out more by clicking here. Thank you for your time. Great to see you.
Thank you too. Bye now.